$17 in 1 hour of work. How did I do it? Exactly 1 year ago, I decided to try out all those platforms that claim to pay you for testing different platforms, websites, or apps. For a whole month, I dedicated myself solely and completely to testing these platforms and checking if they really pay and how much they pay. And if they're really worth it. The results were truly surprising, but they left me with a clear bad taste in my mouth. I honestly thought you could earn much more than I actually did. If you haven't seen that video yet, I recommend you check it out because you'll understand why I'm saying this. But this year, we wanted to go much further, and with the new format of TuParaisOnline, where people like you can collaborate with us and try out different ways to make money online, working side by side with us. This is the case with Genis, someone who wanted to collaborate with us and is carrying out this project where he will spend 3 months working on all the platforms of this kind that we found to make money online as a tester. And the best part is that he also has access to my old accounts, and of course, he's registering new accounts under his own profile. So he will have 2 options to make money. One with an old account and another with his new account. But that's not all. We're also going to be able to check out some other very interesting things. How much time does it take to complete a test? Are the entry tests really that difficult? Can anyone apply to them from any country? And how many of them actually, in the end up paying? In just 1 month, Genis has already tried at least 10 platforms and many of them are already paying him. One of them has even sent him several packages to test at home, and they're already going to pay him more than 130 euros. In this video, you're going to see exactly what happened, how he got this test, how much he earned in total in 1 month, and what the projections are for the next 3 months. Which platforms are actually worth it? Let's find out. Okay, the first thing we did so that Genis could start his work was, of course, to give him a list of all the platforms I was able to find that offered the possibility to earn money by doing screen recording tests. For the ones I already had an account with, I gave him all the login details. That way, I can also work from my account in addition to his new accounts. Further down, we also have a list of platforms that, unlike the previous ones, focus mainly on finding errors or so-called bugs. And that way, you can earn money by reporting them. So there are 2 ways to make money as a tester. Which one is the best? In this same Excel file, Genis has shared his daily process with me for each of the platforms. Here you can see that it's broken down by days and comments. This way, you can keep track of what has happened each day. Each tab represents a platform, and in each one, you write down what has been done, what has happened, or any relevant information. For example, here we are in Userlytics, but we can see that if we switch to user interviews, there is also content, and the same goes if we move to user brain or any other platform where something has happened. Genis is committed to his work, and we want to show you the reality based on our experience. Because blogs and YouTubers tell you how much you can earn, but no one actually shows it with their real experience. Once we have the list of all the platforms we're going to work with, it's time to start registering on all of them. And there are really a lot, so this first part of the project is tedious and boring, but it has to be done. Some platforms are very simple to register on, where you of course have to provide your basic personal information and then other relevant details that will help clients looking for testers know if you are the right person to carry out the test. This is the case with testing time, where once you confirm your registration via email and verify it with a document or your LinkedIn account, you will have to answer typical questions like what phone you use, if you have a car, if you have pets, if you smoke, and so on to determine your demographic profile. But not all registrations are that quick. On these types of platforms where you record your screen while browsing, in many cases, they need you to do a test like this to see if you can express yourself well, if you understand the process, and even in some cases, if you have sufficient command of the required language. Okay, if you don't know any language other than Spanish, don't worry. There are platforms focused on Spanish speakers and platforms that require testers in Spanish. Of course, if you speak even decent English, your opportunities to earn money increase considerably. Here I'll briefly show you some cases where Genis had to spend time doing a test like this. This is the case, for example, with Loop 11, where the test was actually quite simple. Other more tedious examples were Hotjar or UserBrain, where he had to browse the website Zara.com and answer some questions, giving his opinion while navigating. As you can see, these are very simple questions and anyone is capable of giving their opinion, right? Genis's experience is going to last exactly 3 months. But in this video, I'm going to show you how things are going halfway through. The most important thing, and what takes the most time, is completing the initial tests. Here, it's extremely important to do them well, because whether you receive tests and projects that match your profile will depend on this. My first recommendation is to use as much personal information about yourself as possible. Even if it's not true, as long as it's information you can talk about with absolute confidence, there's no problem. For example, if they inquire and ask you whether you are a smoker but you do not smoke at all, you should not simply say that you're not a smoker, because you might not receive specific projects or research tests on that particular topic. Maybe you were a smoker in the past, or maybe you have people close to you, family or friends, who are smokers, and you might have knowledge about this subject. Therefore, this can help you have more access to other tests and projects on any topic. Use logic. Obviously, if they say they need an engineer of any kind and you have no idea about engineering, it's going to be hard for you to come across as an expert on the subject. Another practical tip is that if you don't feel confident when explaining things while navigating during the test, or if you have language difficulties and don't feel completely at ease, I recommend that you practice before taking any test to get a sense of what things you could say in the most practical way for you, so it will be easier to express yourself during the videos. Alright, Genis is already registered on all the platforms, or most of them, so let's see what's happening and what he's generating. Let's see what Genis has been telling us on each of the platforms to understand his situation, and that way get a deeper understanding of which platforms offer more opportunities to make money. Let's start with Descode, a platform where you give your opinion while recording your screen. Here, Genis tells us that the registration was easy and that you have to install an extension and an app, but only the app works. Here you can see some of the steps he had to take, and as he mentioned in the comments, it doesn't seem to work well on the PC. In the Henny app, he finds some tests he can apply for. This one, for example, is a study to see how people use their phones, and they offer a $60 reward. But nothing, rejected. This other one for sports fans offers between $7 and $70, but same luck. What I notice here, and it fits with my previous recommendation, is that when asked to select thank you pages where he views sports news and results, he only chooses Google and SofaScore out of all the available options. And I think that if he had chosen 4 or 5 more of their options, he really would have had a better chance of being selected. So anyway, let's move on to the next platform, Chequealos. Chequealos is a platform focused on the Spanish market and also on screen recording. In fact, we have 2 videos about my personal experience with it that I recommend you watch. I don't want to go on too long here. It's definitely a platform with potential, and it's worth noting that we started the process a month later, at the end of October. So we'll see later how it went for us. Let's move on to Hotjar, a platform that claims you can earn from $3 to $30 per test by trying out websites. According to Genis, registration is super easy and fast, but he says that nothing at all ever comes through. However, I do remember receiving some tests by email, which maybe he hasn't seen. Let's move on to Meansworms, a somewhat different platform. In fact, we also have videos of my experience earning $50 in the past with just one test, which I really recommend watching. Just a quick note, it's based in the USA, so you always have to act as if you live there. Now we move on to Playbook, a platform that also pays for your opinion. In this case, an initial test was done. And you have to download an extension, but it seems there hasn't been much success, so let's move on to the next one. This is Testing Time, an old platform that, according to Genis, is also very easy to access and sign up for, but it seems there hasn't been any success since no test arrived by email, although I did receive one on October 15th for €2. we're moving on to Trymata, where I also have my own personal experience in video form, which I recommend you watch. I remember that, just as Genis says, it's a platform that offers tests, but it causes a lot of problems, since the level of demand is high and you have to grab the test very quickly, almost instantly. It seems that after Genis completed a 20 or 30-minute test, it was rejected. But this time the mistake was his, because the requirements demanded a condition that Genis didn't meet and he lied about it, because he didn't really know how to do it. And it was more than obvious that they didn't know anything at all. Therefore, the client rejected the test. You have to be very careful with this, because on any platform, this counts very negatively against you, and if you get a low rating, they stop sending you tests and projects. The next one is Uber Tester, where Genis is not happy with the registration process, which is super long in addition to the basic data registration. A 20-minute test with all kinds of questions, and then even an access exam just to be able to use the platform, which apparently takes more than 2 hours. Knowing this, it's logical that people are put off from even trying. So, let's move on to user testing. I would say it's the pioneer in this type of platform. We also have a video about it on the channel, which I'll leave for you in the description. And I remember that I was banned from all my accounts where I tried to take tests with this platform, and they stopped sending me tests because of it, or at least that's what I thought. Basically, it's a serious platform, and you have to be careful not to do things you shouldn't. Genis luckily did get a test, so maybe things went better for him. We also have an explanatory video about UserBrain on the channel, a platform that works through a browser extension on PC and an app. In the past, I remember I used to get quite a few tests worth €3. Does it really still work like that? It seems that Genis has applied to several, but without much luck. We'll see later in the final statistics what actually happened. It seems there's not much to show about Userfield. The registration process seems long, although Genis gives us good feedback about it. But it doesn't seem like there have been any tests. User interviews, for me, it's a very interesting and different platform. And here, you really have to keep checking and reviewing the projects. Because of the quality of the payments, it must be an American company focused more on the American public, but that shouldn't stop you from trying. In fact, I see that even Genis has already managed to withdraw some money. The truth is, there is a wide variety of options. We'll look at the final results later to draw a final conclusion. Now comes Userlytics, one of my favorites from the past and one of the platforms that paid me the most, if not the most, on this type of platform. Will it be the same for Genis? In fact, it looks like it will be. I see a lot of content in the Excel sheet and a few completed tests. I see one from Shane, and we have images of how he did it. The tests, as you can see, are all very simple and similar. It's about browsing the website, following the instructions they give you, and giving your honest opinion about what you're doing. I also see that he has been receiving several PayPal payments of $3 or $10 respectively. So, good job, Genis. User pick, a dud. Web usability. It looks like a platform where we won't be able to get anything. Plus, Genis already says it. It's a very strange website with no clear information, and it seems to be only for UK residents. The next one is beta testing. It also seems like a somewhat unusual platform. 30 minutes just to register. No more, no less. On November 20th, a test arrives, a trial to analyze over the course of a month. Let's see if we have good news. Crowdback Trap, formerly We Are Testers. Definitely, the old name was much better. What memories come to mind? It became my second job 4 years ago, earning me half a salary every month. Of course, it's not what it used to be, starting with its name. Now it seems that hardly any missions come in, and the few that do are aimed at the French audience. Even so, I encourage Genis to apply, since back in the day I also did projects in French using a translator. Enroll.app has definitely ended up being the confirmation that it's a complete waste of time. A total scam, really. You have to answer 1,000 questions because supposedly after that, tests will start coming your way. But nothing at all. Testbirds. Next up, this is a platform I've always liked. It also has a wide variety of projects. The registration seems easy. About 20 minutes of filling in information without much hassle. For example, one of the projects involved making purchases at some of the most famous stores like Amazon, Zara, El Corte Inglés. Did Genis manage to get anything out of this? Let's take a pause here in reviewing comments from all the platforms because I don't want to leave you hanging. The thing is, Genis has found a great opportunity on this platform, Testbirds. So I'm going to show you what happened, how much work he had to do, what he had to do, and most importantly, how much money he made from this project. Let's take a look. Here is the project and description from Testbirds. They already say it themselves. Are you ready to be a game changer in the world of online shopping? It sounds really epic, but the project actually lives up to it. The conditions are clear. Make online purchases on 4 of the biggest online shopping platforms and then process the returns. Each of the 4 pays 30 euros. So if Genis does all 4, he'll receive 120 euros. Not bad, right? For this, they're asking him to fill out an initial report with some basic questions. In the Details tab, we can find the task summary. Genis is going to shop at Zara, Shein, El Corte Inglés, and Amazon. For each company, the process is the same. Place an order, receive the order, and then return it. And in each of the 3 steps, you have to fill out a somewhat tedious report so that the client can know all the details of what happened. The client requires specific products within a specific price range. And this is important because Genis needs to use his own money for it. So if you don't have money to make purchases, you wouldn't be able to participate in this test. I'm not going to go on too long explaining the project's process. Here, Genis has already chosen his purchase at Zara. Some sneakers and a pair of white jeans costing almost 150 euros. Once the order is placed, you just have to fill out the report with the requested information, and that's it. Same process with El Corte Inglés, where he also chooses 2 very similar products, jeans and sneakers. And this time, the price is 175 euros. And is it more of the same with Amazon and Shein, always choosing the same 2 products? In the end, the process gets quite long. It's 4 stores, 4 reports, and it takes time and effort, but Genis completes it successfully. The packages arrive. Genis receives each of them, and now, once he has checked the order, he has to start the return process. Here we can see one of the packages he received with the sneakers and the jeans. They look like they're good quality, honestly. But this time they can't be used, so it's time to return them. Now we move on to Testlio. It seems that this platform is very demanding, and they want to make sure that the people who register and apply do things properly. Just the introductory video lasts 23 minutes, but Genis tells us that there are several processes, all of them tedious, and that in the end, between courses, initial tests, and registrations, it takes more than 5 hours. Knowing this, let's see who has the guts to sign up. PlayCloud is a platform more focused on game testing, so this might be a bit more fun. The problem is that almost everything is aimed at the UK and USA, but it seems there may be opportunities for other countries as well. I also have my own experience with UTest from 5 years ago. Honestly, it was a very active platform with lots of options, but also a bit tricky to understand. It seems like it's still at the same level. I see that Genis has written a lot of comments. It looks like the registration process is complicated and also takes a lot of time, more than 2 hours between courses and other stuff. From what I can see, my account hasn't been used, even though I already have experience and completed payments. That's a shame, Genis. There are also some tempting tests for Spaniards, like one that lasts 4 weeks and pays $40 per week. Genis, give it a try and see if you get lucky. Honestly, all kinds of tests come in. Let's hope that good old Genis at least managed to make some money to make up for all the effort he put in. Respondent is a new platform. And honestly, I didn't know about it, but it seems to be working well. From what I can see, there are all kinds of tests and different payment amounts, from $5 up to $120. Wow. Genis applies to everything that comes in, and it seems that he succeeds with some of them. We'll see it in the total summary later on. We have 3 left. Try Vermi. It's a bug application which I personally had never used before. Genis likes it, even though he has another 20-minute recording, but it's in Spanish and gives him good vibes. Genis tries to apply to several tests. In most cases, the test appears both on my personal account and his. which is a big advantage because he already knows what to expect and can maybe change his answers with better intuition. UserCrowd is also a somewhat different platform with short but effective tests. I also have a video about my own experience with it, which you really have to watch to better understand what kind of tests you get. But here, you can already get an idea from Genis's comments. Quite a few tests come in that take 2 to 5 minutes of your time and you earn from 20 cents to 2 euros. The best part is that even if you don't qualify, they give you about 20 cents for your effort. Lastly, Worker, a platform I didn't know about and which, according to Genis, is a company linked to Amazon. Thank you. And he hasn't been able to do anything with it. We've now reached the end of the summary of all the platforms Genis has used and what has happened. I've tried to be as quick as possible so it wouldn't be too long, but now it's time to find out the data. How much money he's earned, how much time he's invested in each platform, and which platforms we recommend after this month-and-a-half experience. So, let's take a look. Finally, we've reached the summary of what has happened on each platform during this month-and-a-half experience. Remember, the goal is 3 months. We have each of the platforms that Genis has tried to use. And we have 2 columns for payments. One for Sergio's account and another for Genis's account. Then we have the time invested in each platform, from registration to the time spent doing paid work. Everything is included. Next, we have the columns for available tests. One for me and another for Genis. This isn't entirely accurate since we've only based it on what arrives by email and not on what appears in each platform's dashboard, so the actual number should be quite a bit higher. Then we have the columns for tests completed on each account and of course the tests accepted on each of them. It's clear that Genis has focused much more on his own accounts, and that's understandable. After all, he receives the emails directly, so it's easier and more logical for him to put his effort into his own account. But I've always tried to forward him the tests I get by email as quickly as possible. With this data, I think it will be much easier for you to know what to choose if you want to work as a tester and what to expect. The first thing we see is that the platforms that have brought in money are Chequealos, User Testing, User Interviews, Userlytics, Testbirds, Respondent, and UserCrowd, with Testbirds being by far the one that has paid the best, followed by Chequealos and Respondent, but those are much further behind. Now we need to analyze the time spent. This helps us clearly identify what to avoid, as in the case of Testlio, where Genis wasted 6 hours of his time on the initial process, only to then not even receive a test. Calculating the payments and time spent, Testbirds would also be the one that pays the best per hour. 13 euros and 50 cents. Continued. They check them with 10 euros and then respond with 6 euros per hour. There are platforms that I want to give a chance in the second part of this experience, such as UTest, where I have spent 7 hours and 40 minutes without any success. But I think the reward for the effort will come soon. Reviewing the totals, Genis has earned a total of 220 euros using 49 hours of his time, which averages out to 4 euros and 48 cents per hour of work. What do you think about this? Is it worth it? It's also important to keep in mind that Genis has his own job and did all of this in his free time. Someone without a job could focus much more on it. And finally, Genis is one of the people who wanted to take part in the new TPO projects, and we are also going to pay him an extra 50 euros for all the work he has done. You can also be part of TPO